Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. I'm your host Stuart and I'm also joined by Andy.
I was tempted to be really quiet again then and see if it went wrong, but no, I won't be.
Yeah, I would have killed you if you've done that, and this time it is actually working, so unfortunately for people out there that can hear you.
Unfortunately, thank you very much.
We have 4 films to review this week. They are...
Bruce Willis is back as Detective John McClane in A Good Day to Die Hard. We have the latest in the line of teenage books to be adapted to film in Beautiful Creatures. Judd Apatow's comedy movie This Is 40, and documentary with Keanu Reeves presenting Side by Side.
Yeah, on top of that we have the usual movie news in the UK box office top 10, but you can get us on the live chat on Spreaker. You'll find it in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So let's kick things off with UK box office top 10. At number 10, The Impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying before there's not a lot more we can say about this. It's a fantastic film, which is a small budget film, but it doesn't show it on the screen. But it's the true story of the family that survived the tsunami disaster and underwent the horror of that. It's really amazingly exhausting to watch, but it's such a dramatic film that it's one that should be seen.
Yeah, number 9, Life of Pi,
which is also a very similar kind of movie, not based on a true story. It's a fictional story based on a book, which is a story of a boy whose ship that he's on with a family and zoo is capsized, and he is the only survivor on a lifeboat along with a tiger, and he has to sort of get on and learn to actually survive with this creature that wants to kill him and eat him. Really brilliantly well shot by Ang Lee, who does this kind of thing. You have on it as well the whole thing of a great performance. I can't remember his name, but he was nominated for the BAFTAs, and he's absolutely brilliant in the film. This is sort of his first big major role, and there's great CGI work of the tiger, which the majority of the time is completely CGI, and also amazing use of 3D.
Yeah, we're at number 8, the new entry for Hitchcock.
Which is we don't know how accurate it is historically, but the thing is with Hitchcock is that it is surprisingly enjoyable for a film that kind of doesn't live up to the potential that's there in having a film that's titled Hitchcock. It's covering the making of Psycho, and the whole thing of that. It really should be covering a lot more than that with just the title Hitchcock, but it's thoroughly enjoyable for the time that it runs and for what it covers, just that you do want a bit more from it.
Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, it's quite exactly what it, like Alfred Hitchcock. I couldn't think of a way to string the sentence together there. It does show Alfred Hitchcock of what he was like. He was a very big womanizer. He was a really hard person to work with, especially his female roles.
Yeah, he doesn't come off in a great light in it. He really doesn't.
Yeah, they found him a bit leering, to be honest, and that's exactly what he was like, Alfred Hitchcock. But I agree with Andy. It's a strange film. For all it's called Hitchcock, it's more to do with the making of Psycho rather than Hitchcock himself, which is a strange thing to do, and people might get it mixed up with Hitchcock, the movie with Will Smith in it. If you do, you're stupid, though.
Isn't that a mix of two, where he's like a superhero who then goes out and gives dating advice to people?
Yeah. So you definitely don't want to get those two mixed up. Number 7, Lincoln.
I still haven't seen this yet. I'm annoyed. I want to see this. Tell me, how good is this film, supposedly?
Yeah, the thing is, though, the Oscars is next Sunday. So I hope that you plan to see it before the Oscars next Sunday.
I need to. I really want to see it. I'm going to try and see. I hope my local is still showing it, actually. Because I think it's only on one today now.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is brilliant in it. I've said that constantly, and I think he's a shoo-in for the Oscar next week. Steven Spielberg, it's nice for him to do a movie which is more about character pieces rather than just big set pieces. Every actor is on form in the film. It's a brilliant film. And number 6, new entry for Warm Bodies,
which is a disappointing film to say the least. I mean, we've got beautiful creatures coming up later on this evening. Beautiful Creatures and Warm Bodies have a similar thing where there are 4 films this year trying to fill the void left by Twilight, by there not being a Twilight film this year. And Warm Bodies is basically the Twilight, but not vampires and werewolves. It is zombies instead. And you have the thing of you have Nicholas Hoult in it, who is very good in it, but just it's very bland and weak for a zombie film because it's rated 12A, so it's been sort of trimmed down, although really not enough for a 12A rating. It's very weird, doesn't quite work, and doesn't quite know whether it wants to be a comedy, whether it wants to be a horror, or whether it wants to be a romantic film. It really doesn't know which of the three and tries to be all of them, and unfortunately because of that fails.
In my opinion, it doesn't work in any of the categories. It doesn't work as a horror film because it's not graphic enough to be a zombie horror film. Out of all the genres of horror to go for a 12A, zombies should not be one of them. They work fine in an animated film with like Paranorman, but with a film like this, no. It's not a very funny comedy. There are elements of the movie which brought a smirk to my face.
But there's nothing that made you really burst out laughing in it where it could have been genuine. I mean, there's setups in the film which could have made for really good humour in it, but they just don't. It doesn't pay off.
Yeah, and the romantic element for me just didn't work. It was dead, like the zombies themselves. So no, it was a bit of a boring film, to be honest. Number 5, Flight.
Which is, I mean, you said about Daniel Day-Lewis being a shoo-in for best performance in Oscars. I think that of all the films I have seen, as I say, I haven't seen Hitchcock, so I haven't seen Lincoln yet, but that for me, Denzel Washington in Flight is the shoo-in for best performance. He gives a really great performance in this throughout the film. I mean, when does he not? But it does suffer from the problem of Robert Zemeckis films where you have a big sort of set piece which is there initially to hold everything together, and then the rest of the film focuses on the dramatic tension that is the fallout of that sequence. And unfortunately, it does drag on a bit too long to get to where it's going.
Yeah. Number 4, Django Unchained.
Talking of dragging on a bit long to get to where it's going, Django Unchained definitely takes the cake in that part. It's a problem. It's a film which is very good for the first half and a bit, and then the last sort of rest of that bit of the film after that is then where it really has problems, particularly where Quentin Tarantino shows up himself on screen with the dodgiest Australian accent that you've ever heard. Quite graphic as a Quentin Tarantino film is, quite violent at parts, but a really great piece of set piece and performance from, in particular, Christoph Waltz in the film as a guy who's a dentist turned bounty hunter who's really good in the film.
Yeah, number 3, and you went before I give it a year.
We still haven't seen this yet. It's a British comedy about couples and how one couple is married and her sister or sister-in-law utters the phrase, "I give it a year," and then it's on about the whole thing of how their relationship develops and pitfalls and such as there are of a year. Seems to be doing okay for itself. It seems to be getting sort of mixed sort of some people are really liking it, some people are not thinking it's that great, so it's getting a bit of mixed reactions, but I guess we'll see next week as to how quickly it will drop out of the top 10.
Yeah, number 2, Les Miserables,
which is a fantastic film. It's finally been toppled off the top spot. It is absolutely amazing, especially considering it's a musical and I do not like musicals. Great performances from the cast. I mean, you've got in there Anne Hathaway, you've got Hugh Jackman, even Russell Crowe, who's not especially vocally brilliant as the rest of his peers in the film, but does a good enough job that you can get with him as he's going along. You can enjoy it, and it's not it doesn't detract from the overall experience of the film. Which, if you can see it, if you get a chance while it's still at the cinema, because it's going to be there for a while, see it at the cinema. Don't wait for it to come out on DVD, because you will miss something in it being on a small screen and not having the sound. It's amazing sound because of the fact it's all been recorded live when they did it, which is why there's so much emotion in it.
Yeah, but make sure you put your finger in your ears when Amanda Seyfried comes on.
Oh God, yes.
She has such a shrill voice.
Yeah. If you wear glasses, switch them out for contact lenses because they're plastic. They won't shatter when she gets to her high peaks.
No, they will shatter. And at number 1, a new entry for Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, Disney's most Pixar-like movie that isn't by Pixar. The cartoon animation is great. The comedy and the writing in it is really good. It's really fresh for a Disney film. I mean, it's John Lasseter is involved in a producing role, so I'm not surprised by that. John Lasseter is... Anyone else who doesn't recognise his name will recognise Toy Story because he was involved in those. He directed the first one. And it's a great movie that both kids and adults, especially adults who've been gamers in the last 10, 15 years, will find lots in there that they will enjoy and laugh at.
Yep, right, let's get on to some movie news then. Thomas Jane, who was in... I forgot what film he was in.
The Punisher?
That was it, The Punisher. I didn't have it written down, so I was ad-libbing there. So another wonder I forgot.
He was in Deep Blue Sea as well, which keeps getting the rounds on Film 4 recently.
Too much. Yeah, so Thomas Jane has confirmed that he will direct his first film called The Wet House. The film will be loosely based on a Charles Dickens book called The Signal Man, and is about a railway worker haunted by a spectre that informs him of train crashes before they happen. Jane will not only direct the film, but he is also set to star in it.
Okay, that sounds kind of interesting. Sounds a bit of a reworking sort of like the Mothman prophecies.
Yeah.
Kind of that sort of thing. But, it kind of sounds a bit like that and Unbreakable to me, actually, thinking about it. But, I mean, I'll have to look out for this because it sounds quite interesting. That's got me interested. That genuinely has.
Yeah, it's an interesting film for him to do as his directorial debut. We'll see how it goes. Deadline are reporting that the Spy Hunter film has finally found its director in Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland and the recent film The Gangster Squad.
Just don't get me started on Gangster Squad. I don't really know how to feel about this. I mean, I guess it's going to be one of those things. Spy Hunter, it's been one of these films that's been in production hell for the better part of a decade. And until I hear anything about it actually starting production and filming, I will not hold my breath.
Yeah, it's been in hell for quite a long time. More news, it has been reported that Jared Butler is set to sue the producers of scrapped crime film Motor City. Butler is suing the producers over unpaid wages after funding for the film fell through last summer. According to the actor, he is suing the producers for $5.1 million in damage, alleging breach of contract.
I did read briefly about this the other day. I mean, it's him moaning about the fact that he was going to be getting paid regardless of what happens with the film, and it's pathetic, really. It really is, especially in the financial age and the financial situation the world is in at the moment. That doesn't look good for him PR-wise. Considering
that he was supposed to have only got $4 million if a problem occurred with the film, and now he wants $5.1 million. It's just being greedy. More news. According to Latino Review via Fox News, Harrison Ford will return as Han Solo in Star Wars Episode 7. Ford initially stated that he will not return in the role. However, it looks like director J.J. Abrams has managed to convince him.
This is another one of those things that I'm tentatively taking with a grain of salt. As much as I would love to see more Star Wars films. I'm looking forward to see what happens with them. I'm not, again, going to hold my breath on what happens, what doesn't happen, what we hear, what we're rumoured, what's confirmed until things have started filming. Because of the fact of that's the kind of thing that I know we're going to hear changes back and forth between now and then.
Yeah, and one other Star Wars related thing, if you listen to Following the Nerd, they are actually going to be starting a Star Wars related podcast called The Empire Talks Back, if I remember correctly. And if I also remember correctly, Mark is trying to record the first episode on Sunday, so I would check iTunes or keep an eye on following the Nerds Twitter feed for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's following the nerd.com as well. They'll have updates on there anytime because they update their website very regularly. So if there's any news on that, they will update it there first, surely, as well.
Yeah, and my final piece of news, according to Variety, Game of Thrones actor Peter Dinklage has been confirmed as playing the villain in X-Men Days of Future Past. It is unknown exactly what character he will be playing, as it was rumoured that he was set to play a member of the Alpha Flight.
Yeah, I mean, I know the X-Men sort of comics a little bit. I don't know the character that he's supposed to be playing. People have been saying he's going to play a character called Puck, but again, that's not been confirmed or anything either. So, I mean, it's got to be, it's likely to be something from the comics that is going to be due to his size and stature. So, I don't know how that's going to work out and all, but I mean, Bryan Singer returning to X-Men is what is the good thing about it. It's going to be good, even if it's terrible. It's going to be good.
Yeah, let's hope.
Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. That's all I can say. Just hope for it. Hope for the best. Now, do you have any news?
I haven't, but one thing I did see about, briefly I'm going to mention, is another Marvel news bit. It's the thing of the, there's the ongoing thing of Guardians of the Galaxy. Bit of potential sort of casting news, which kind of links in with Peter Dinklage, because it's one of the actors who was in the first series of Game of Thrones. The guy who was in A Bullet to the Head recently. I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember his name right now. But he played... I can't think what it is now.
It was in Conan. Conan.
Yeah.
Was it Jason Momoa?
Jason Momoa, that's it. Yeah, and I mean, he's been linked with playing a character in Guardians of the Galaxy. Apparently, he has screen tested, which has been confirmed, but nothing's been confirmed about whether or not he's been cast in a role or not.
Oh, well, we'll see. He's not a good actor at all anyway, so...
I know, but there's a character that if he plays it, it'll be heavily in prosthetic or CGI work over in it, because it's something like a... Well, in fact, it's a 6 foot tall green sort of bald alien, and so I mean he is about 6 foot tall anyway, so there's no problem with him in the height issue, and he fits the body size of it, the body style, but it's just a case of we'll see what happens with that further down the line if he gets cast or not.
Yeah, let's see. Right, we have 4 films to review, no advert, so let's just get straight into the reviews then. First up, It's a Good Day to Die Hard. Yeah, it's not a good day to die hard, trust me. It's directed by John Moore, and obviously Bruce Willis returns as John McClane. And in this, the storyline is a bit pathetic, to be honest, considering I think what the director has decided to do is try to make an action-packed film and make the storyline dumb. John McClane has to go over to Moscow because he discovers that his son has been arrested for a murder that he's committed in a nightclub. He's been put up for trial. His son, Jack McClane, played by Jai Courtney, has decided to make a deal with the government that he would testify against a character called Komarov, who was played by Sebastian Koch. And at the trial itself, the courtroom is then bombarded by these guys with guns, etc. You don't know why they're there at first, but then you find out that it's something to do with they want Komarov because he holds some information that can prove the downfall of the leader of the Russian government. Here's a clip.
What? Это Москва! Не будет станция! Да? Do you think I understand a word you're saying? Jesus Christ. It's okay. I'm fine, thanks. Get out of the way! Jesus! Sorry, ma'am! Oh, man! Knock, knock.
And as you can probably guess, the rest of the movie is they have to protect this Komarov character, maybes of some kind, because the information that he has got will bring down the leader of the government, and hijinks happens. That's all I'm going to say about the film.
Hijinks.
Yeah, hijinks. I'm trying to be nice to the movie because it's rubbish. It's just, honestly...
I love that phrase, I'm trying to be nice to the movie because it's rubbish.
Yeah, I am, because honestly, last year we reviewed Taken 2, and Taken 2 we thought was the biggest cash cow of 2012. It was a movie that was thrown out there. The violence was reduced down from the original film, so it could get a 12 here, so more people could go and see this. The exact same thing has been done with A Good Day to Die Hard. What they've gone and done is they've reduced down the violence, etc. It is still quite violent, though, for a 12 year. But they've reduced down the violence.
And it contains 4 uses of the F-bomb as well.
Actually, it's 5. There is 5 uses of it, because one is the F-bomb with an ing on the end.
I remember counting 4, but I was quite surprised that they let them get away with that, to be honest.
Yeah, considering that it's said 3 times in a row, practically, within the space of 5 minutes. But yeah, it's an action set piece led by a bit of character development, supposedly, with the next bit of action set piece. And the action set pieces are quite well done. They are nice to look at, specifically the one that you heard there, where it leads up to him chasing after them on the motorway. It's a typical chasing after somebody motorway scene, but he has to drive across, John McClane has to drive across some cars, etc. And they're really nice choreographed, apart from the final set piece in the movie, which is really badly got some horrible CGI in it. I'll not give it away what it is, but the CGI in it is really bad, and it just plods along and it follows bullet points. I think he must have had a list of 12 bullet points, and every single time he reached a bullet point, he just ticked it off. He was going, yep, I've got to have an action set piece, tick that off. I've got to have a bit of dialogue between father and son, tick that off. Sarcastic dialogue, why not? Let's add that in the film as well. And just, honestly, stop the series. Just stop the series. But unfortunately, there will be another film in the series. It's a major cash cow. Anybody who's a fan of the Die Hard series, if you didn't like Die Hard 4.0, then you're going to despise this movie. It's boring, it's not fun, and it's rubbish.
I was going to add as well, I mean, I had issues with the editing in some points. Some of the action sequences I found to be quite chaotic and hard to follow. I mean, the car chase bit you had there, you're talking about, was... it's a 3-car chase with 3 people, 3 cars, one chasing after the other. And parts of that were awkwardly edited that didn't help with trying to keep up with what was going on. Same with some of the action sequences later on as well. And I mean, the sound mix on it, the sound mix on it is loud, which I don't have a problem with. You get a good loud sound mix on the film. Is good for an action film. It does help. It makes it adds the punch to it, which a lot of films can be lacking. But if you're going to do it, mix it properly. There is an art to mixing dialogue and big crashes and booms and sound effects of all that. And on this, it's not done very well at all. There are lines of dialogue which you do not hear. You cannot make out what's being said because of the fact that you're being distracted by the overpowering explosion and crashes that are going on around it at the same time. And it makes for a really poor viewing experience. I hope it's something that maybe they were rushed with trying to get it out for the release date because they had it set for ages. And I hope it's something that they maybe will fix when it comes out on DVD and you get the longer uncut version of it, as you're bound to get. But even that then, I mean, as we've seen from experience of things like Taken 2 with the uncut version coming out on DVD, it's not going to make it much better.
Yeah, and Jai Courtney is rubbish as his son. And unfortunately, he's put in there so they could do some spin-offs. He's the new Sam. I'm terrible with names tonight. What's his name? Who's in Avatar? Sam Worthington.
So he's the new Sam Worthington. He is. He's from Australia as well. They're both from Australia, I think. So
yeah, and if I remember correctly, he was in Spartacus.
Was he?
Yes, I think he's in Spartacus.
I mean, and one of the things that's really annoying about it is it's directed by John Moore, who's not a brilliant director, but he's not a bad director. I mean, his last film was Max Payne, which was awful. It's not as bad as Max Payne, as far as I'm concerned, but it's not as good as things like he did Behind Enemy Lines, which I really enjoyed back in 2001. So 12 years later, he's not improved his skill. He's let it get worse, and it's a shame. It really is.
It's just avoidable. If you're a fan of Die Hard films, just don't go to see it. If you're a Die Hard fan, sorry, I couldn't resist that. Don't go to see it.
Yeah, you should be flogged for that. I'm going to go into Beautiful Creatures, which is directed by Richard Lagravenese, and I'm not going to say that again. It's based on the novel, which is written by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. And it is, I mean, people that are fans of the books have hated this comparison being made. It is essentially a Twilight story, a Twilight similar story. It's set in a small southern town where you have a character, Ethan, played by Alden. I can't do these names. Alden Ehrenreich, I think it is. I'm butchering names tonight. I really am. But Ethan is he's a teenager who is sort of in the last few years of his school. He hates living in this town. He can't wait till he gets old enough to then leave and get away. It's a boring town that nothing ever really happens. It's a big sort of religious town which has got more churches than it has anything else. It doesn't even have a Starbucks, and the cinema it's got there doesn't get things until they're out on DVD anyway. Into the town comes a girl called Lena, who's played by Alice Englert, who is her uncle is the kind of the town pariah, the outsider, who is a kind of a recluse that a lot of the sort of the Baptist religious types in the town view as being akin to a sort of a devil worshipper. And the reason sort of as to why they are sort of the outsiders become clear more and more when he finds out that Alice is in fact a caster, or a witch basically, who has magical abilities and powers. There's an ongoing feud then which he becomes aware of, where when Lena turns 16, she will then be by her true nature forced to join either the good forces of light or to join the evil forces of darkness, amongst which is her mother, who is a sort of a very well-known, powerful caster in the caster world, who apparently is trying to trick her and get her to join into her in the dark side. Sounds like sort of a Star Wars thing, but here's a clip.
You told me my mother was dead. You lied to me. Why? Why?
Lena, our words, our language cannot explain all that there is. There are other ways someone can die to us.
No, I'll tell her. Your mother, Seraphine, is the most powerful dark caster of all of us. She lives in the darkness, in the shadows. If she does appear, it's in the guise of someone else. She has no love for you. That's what I was trying to protect you from.
So I'm going to be claimed for the dark no matter what?
No, not necessarily. I know your true nature. It's strong. Seraphine recognizes it, too. She knows that without the curse, your true nature would claim you for the light. Now, I believe the curse can be broken, but you need to have a will that's so strong you control your own nature.
That's what I told her.
The first thing you have to do is to get rid of him.
So, the thing about Beautiful Creatures is that I went into it with lower expectations. I mean, I've seen the Twilight films. I'll admit that they are okay, but there are issues. There are definitely issues for anyone who knows film and enjoys film. They're not particularly... The Twilight films aren't particularly bad films. And again, I mean, apologies to anyone who is a fan of the book and they'll have a go at me for comparing them, but everyone's going to be comparing these because they are similar. There are 4 books in the series of Beautiful Creatures, of which this is the first one. Similar again to Twilight, which was 4 books as well. You have the whole thing of the two, you know, the mortal and the well, I don't want to say immortal, but the mortal and the, you know, supernatural blending together. And the thing is that compare it against that, I mean, as I say, there were 4 films. There is this. There was Warm Bodies, which we had last week or the week before, which is the zombie version of this. You have then The Host, which is another one by Stephanie Moyer, who wrote the Twilight books. It's a book that she wrote, which has been turned into a film with Saoirse Ronan, which is basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers version of this. And then you've got Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, later in the year in August, which is another book that's been adapted, which is basically like an angels and demons thing of this. Now, the thing is with this is that it is far more a better film than any of the 5 Twilight Saga films. It is much more competently handled. It's much more brilliantly directed. It is visually impressive throughout. And visually impressive doesn't sound that brilliant for film, but you need to keep the audience's vision entertained as well as having a good story and having good performances and everything. This film has that. It has a really good direction of that. It has really good cinematography. There's great performances, especially from the 2 young leads in the cast. Alden Ehrenreich, I think it is. I'm butchering names, I know, but and Alice Englert as the 2 young leads in the film. They give really decent performances throughout the whole film. There's none of this. There's none of the schmaltz that you had from the Twilight films that you had with I'm forgetting names again, but the 2 leads
Bella
of the Twilight
and
films.
Edward, isn't it?
Yeah,
the characters, but it's
the actors. You know what I mean.
Kristen
the actors in
Stewart and Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, anyone knows Kristen Stewart can barely act to save herself. Please, a plank of wood can do a better job. But in here, you have 2 young leads playing really good performances. Jeremy Irons is there chewing the scenery, but in a good way. Emma Thompson is there really chewing the scenery, but in a good way. Emmy Rossum's in the film. Now, she's one of the things which she's kind of doesn't quite work in it, but thankfully she's not in it that much. And Viola Davis is in it, but a bit sort of wasted, unfortunately. But it's a really good, surprising film that I really enjoyed, and I really look forward, and I hope it does well. I really look forward to them making films of the rest of the series. I look forward to seeing where this goes, because it was honestly thoroughly entertaining.
Andy's turned into a girly girl, and according to Dalek Sect, you're dead to him, which is nice.
As I say, I went in not expecting a lot, which I'm not saying it really blew away, but it did a lot more for me than any of the Twilight films did, and it just thoroughly entertained me. I really enjoyed it.
Right, next film. The worst thing about Andy reviewing films, he goes on a little bit, doesn't he? We only have like 13 minutes left and 2 more films to review. So
I know how long you're going to be on this one.
Yeah, this is 40. Now, trying to explain this movie is quite easy. I'm just going to nick what it says off IMDb. I know that's cheating, but this explains it perfectly in 2 sentences. A look at the lives of Peter and Debbie a few years after the events of Knocked Up. That's it. That's how simple the film is. It is set a couple of years after the film Knocked Up, and it follows Peter, played by Paul Rudd, and Debbie, played by Leslie Mann. Now, Debbie, played by Leslie Mann, is the real-life wife of Judd Apatow, who this is directed by, and both of his daughters are in this film as well. So, this is supposedly based on his life with his wife, Leslie Mann, and his daughters, and it centres around the fact that Debbie is about to turn 40, so is Pete, and it's how they struggle with turning 40, how the fact that her life is a bit strange. She owns this clothes shop of kinds, and somebody might be stealing money from it. He has his own record studio now because his original job just fell through. They're having money problems, they're having sexual problems, they're having relationship problems, etc., etc. It's just, here's a clip which features Megan Fox in it, who works for Debbie in her shop, and she suspects Megan Fox's character is stealing some money. But this is a clip which is set when they're having a party at their house.
So that's the girl who works. That's the girl who works for you.
Yeah, that's her.
Works for Debbie. Seems nice. Yeah, my wife would never let me have a hot employee like that.
Yeah.
No. Every woman who works for us looks like they've been in some kind of horrible accident. Yeah.
Oh.
Are you comfortable with that around your husband? Oh, Pete wouldn't know what to do with that.
You think our wives are looking at us right now?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
They look like pedophiles.
Yeah, and so like I said, the rest of the film is just following their lives. Now, the biggest thing that's the problem with this movie is it's on for nearly 2.5 hours. It's a 2.5 hour Judd Apatow comedy, and it feels like it's 2 movies. The way the movie plays out as a gross out comedy, and as a drama which charts the life of the family and trying to struggle through financial difficulties, even though they're in this huge, massive plush house, they've got broadband, they seem to buy the most expensive food, etc., etc., and they've got money problems, and it's just ridiculous. Like I said, it's supposedly based on Judd Apatow's life, and it could lose not just 40 minutes, it could lose an hour and 40 minutes as well, because it's so long and it's so unfunny, just like Judd Apatow's previous stuff. If you know what his movies are like, if you're not a fan of how he directs films and how he writes them, you'll just be completely turned off with this movie. And the fact that it is 2.5 hours is one of the biggest crimes in cinema this year, because you have to sit through just mind-numbing stupid fart jokes and things like that, extended out for adults, of course. And it's really unfunny, and Judd Apatow should stop making films now.
So I didn't think you'd be long in it. That's why I didn't need that much time on Beautiful Creatures. Well, I didn't leave you much time after Beautiful Creatures, sorry. I'm going to go on to the last movie for the cinema section of Side by Side, which is a documentary film. It's a film which it only got a small release in cinemas in the UK this week, but it also was released at the same time on iTunes as available for a download. It is a documentary which is written and directed by Christopher Kenneally, but is produced and presented by Keanu Reeves. Now, it's about the whole thing of the advancement of in filmmaking, with the advancement from using film and celluloid film to digital photography and digital cameras and digital medium. It sort of goes through explaining about the whole thing of how the cameras work in the original cameras, and how it works with celluloid, and how the image then gets onto the celluloid and so on and projected, and then goes on to explain about the difference in how digital works similarly, and then goes on to have interviews with quite a lot of well-known directors and people that are involved with the making of films. I mean, you've got he interviews, amongst others, Danny Boyle, James Cameron, David Fincher, Robert Rodriguez. He interviews he interviews George Lucas as well. I mean, George Lucas is one of the big people who's actually been advancing digital photography for films. He interviews Christopher Nolan briefly, and as well Wally Pfister, who's Christopher Nolan's sort of go-to guy for sort of his cinematography guy, and it's really quite sort of in depth about what's happening with this change in cinema, because now film is becoming sort of a thing that's being removed altogether. It's running out. There are not so many people using it, and it's going to become harder and harder for directors to get it. I mean, here's as well got a clip just about to play, in which he speaks with David Fincher and Robert Rodriguez about the practice of dailies, which is something you can only do on the original film recordings. If you do it on digital, you can just play back something straight away. On dailies, with the original film, you record something, and then the next day you see all of the film from that, and you can see if it's been recorded properly or not. Here's the clip.
But I don't like the betrayal of dailies. I don't like going in and seeing and getting, swept up with a performance and then seeing go out of focus on a 25-foot screen and knowing that there's no way to retrieve that.
What I didn't like about film was that feeling midway through the day, end of the day. Did we get anything today? I don't even remember. Didn't feel like we put the flag in it because you couldn't see. It's like painting with the lights off.
But the DP would tell you, it's not, the lights aren't off. It's in my head.
It's in his head. Well, that's great. But I'm operating the camera. I'm picking the lenses. I'm judging the performances.
So you have this whole thing of that. It explains the whole thing in the process, then goes on to talk with these directors who clearly know what they're talking about, and some of them have their opinions one way or the other. And the thing is that as someone who is interested in film and the making of film and the way that technology is advancing and affecting film, this is a really good, interesting documentary. It's quite well laid out. It's quite good in the way that it does explain things for the layman, and how, how the film's cameras work, so you understand the difference. And it explains things that I didn't even know about, how digital film has now progressed to the point that the image that can be recorded with a digital camera is now more than twice the resolution of an HD image. And you know what HD looks like if you've seen a Blu-ray, or if you've got Sky HD or just an HD television. So imagine an image which is more than twice as clear and as twice as size of that. I mean, it's just a case of it kind of gives a point towards where cinema is going, and sort of the pitfalls of what that's going to mean, or the advances of what's going to be good for that, what's going to be bad. And if you are interested at all in filmmaking and you do find that of interest to you, then you owe it to yourself to check this out. I mean, as I say, it's now on iTunes, available for download for, I think it's about $4.99, wasn't it?
£4.49 for rent.
$4.49, yeah, to rent it. I mean, so it's worth it for that, because if you like documentaries and you like a good one about a subject of filmmaking, then you should check this out, because it is really, honestly, quite an interesting thing.
You can also find it on Curzon Demand as well. They have it on there. I think it's slightly more expensive. I think it's somewhere in the region of around about £8 on there. But iTunes is your best bet, as it's only been shown in some 5 screens, and that's down south. So iTunes is the best place to watch the documentary. But it is quite fascinating. Even if you're not really that interested in film, there is enough in this film itself to be interested in it. It goes from the layman terms up to the stuff that people who are an expert in this kind of field understand it. So there's enough in this film for everybody else. And surprisingly enough, Keanu Reeves is a good interviewee. He can do an interview really well, and he's really interested in what's going on, and he shows an interest in the topic that he's interviewing people about. Because if he wasn't really interested in the subject himself, it could have been a lethargic, boring documentary, because it sounds boring on the surface. But because he's really interested in the subject, it shows that the film itself is interesting in itself. And each director who he does interview has a lot of insightful things to say, and it's a very good film. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
Right there, that's it for the cinema part of the show. We'll be back in a moment live on Spreaker with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show, so we'll see you then.